Game Podcast. We're a group of diverse friends who offer our takes on the latest and greatest board games to hit our table. I'm your host, Daniela, the goofy noob, and I'm joined today by the collector.
Hey, this is David.
The intellectual introvert.
Hi, everyone. This is Chris.
And the deluxeifier.
And you got Pete here.
All right, if you guys are just joining us, this is part 2 of 3 of our March Meeple Madness for 2025. So if you are just joining us, pause this one, go back and listen to the prior week so you know where we're at in our games. Last week, just to recap, I'd like to let you guys know we had Altiplano versus Bombbusters, and Bombbusters won out for that game. We had Alien Frontiers and Lockup, a role-playing tale, which Lockup beat. Then we whittled that down even more, so we had Brass Birmingham, which is our number 1 seed, going against Bombbusters, the number 17 seed, and Brass won that one very begrudgingly. We also had Decrypto, which is our number 8 seed, versus Eldritch Horror, the number 9, and Eldritch Horror eked out on that one. So we hope you guys enjoyed last week's episode. We are back to finish out the rounds. We're going to go 5, 12, 4, 13, 6, 11, 3, 14, 7, and 10, and 2 for the remainder of our seeds.
All right, just a quick reminder how this works. We have a number of head-to-head matchups for each one. We'll compare both games in 5 different categories: theme and production, mechanisms, value for your time, replayability, and the fun factor. We'll choose which game we think outdoes the other in each category. The game that gets the most votes wins the category. The game that wins the most categories wins the battle and moves on to the next round in our tournament. We are still in the Sweet 16, and in our next matchup, we have 2 games that are pretty high on most of our lists, though not everyone's maybe here at the table. But in this matchup, we have the number 5 seed, Lost Ruins of Arnak, against the number 12 seed, Castles of Mad King Ludwig. Lost Ruins of Arnak is a 1-to-4 player worker placement and deck building game that has you leading a team of archaeologists exploring an uncharted island, conducting research, and battling epic monsters. It was designed by Min and Elwin and was first published in 2020 by Czech Games Edition. Its current BGG ranking is 29, and it dug out from under Dune Imperium in episode 19 to win a spot in Meeple Madness. Castles of Mad King Ludwig is a tile-laying and set collection game where you and other contractors work to construct castles subject to the whims of the Mad King himself. The standard game plays 1-to-4 players but increases to 5 with expansions. Castles of Mad King Ludwig was designed by Ted Alspach and was first published in 2014 by Bezier Games. Its current BGG ranking is 212, and it outblinged the Foundations of Rome in episode 22 to make the tournament. Now, this is an interesting matchup to me because at least 2 of us, maybe 3 of us, have Castles of Mad King Ludwig as one of our top 5 games. David isn't exactly what I'd call a fan, so we'll see how that goes. On the other side, I think we're all relatively fond of Lost Ruins of Arnak. But you know what? Games wouldn't be in this tournament if they didn't tickle our fancy anyway. So this is our 12-5 matchup. Typically in March Madness, that often leads to some upsets. We'll see what happens here. Without any further ado, let's dig in. Theme and production. Daniela.
All right, so for theme and production, I think both of these games have great elements that I really enjoy playing with both of them. Castles of Mad King Ludwig, you are a little crazy going through the game. The theme does kind of come out in that. You're kind of putting random rooms and trying to make a whole map of your castle, but it's pretty straightforward. I think with Lost Ruins of Arnak, the theme is very Indiana Jones-ish. There is a lot of very cool discoveries. The pieces and all the elements of the game are really neat and fun to play with. Defeating the monsters is great as well. I think for me, the one that the theme comes through more is going to be Lost Ruins. Pete.
You had to go to me next, didn't you?
I did.
Yeah, this, for everybody listening out there, this is really, really tough because I think both of these have fantastic theme in the production. It's really going to come down to, I have to take a step back because I do have the deluxe version of Castles, and I know that adds something to me. So I'm going to take a little bit back, and I'm going to go with Lost Ruins of Arnak on this one, only because I think out of the box, it's got a great production. They give you those extra little components that, you know, are really nice, at least half of them. So I'm going to go with Lost Ruins of Arnak. Over to Chris.
Yeah, for me, I do not have the blinged out, the super special version of Castles of Mad King Ludwig, but it's still a really, really good production. Yeah. It comes with these trays that have lids on them. They pack really nicely in the box. It's fantastic from a production standpoint. And again, Lost Ruins of Arnak's pretty good too. It's got these nice little gems, nice little arrowheads, and then you've just got like the cardboard
Yeah,
coins and the
yeah.
coins. So it kind of mixes it up. I love the theme of both of these. I'm big on archaeology. It fascinates me. If I'm flipping through the channels and there's something about Egypt, I'm sitting in front of that TV till it's over. I can't help it. But again, this Mad King Ludwig kind of thing too. There's a lot of things about exploring. I don't know how many there are about building a castle for a crazy guy, and I think the production is pretty good too. I'm going to go with Castles of Mad King Ludwig, and I'll kick it to David to see where we end up.
Yeah, so I like what everybody had to say at this table, but my vote is going to be for Lost Ruins of Arnak. I do feel like I'm Indiana Jones when I play this game. I do like that. I don't know, the archaeology theme, I think it does come out really well when you're looking at Castles of Mad King Ludwig, but for whatever reason, it just doesn't stick for me. So I'm going to have to go with Lost Ruins on this one. Production-wise, if I'm just comparing base games, I think they're both well done. So,
all right, so Lost Ruins of Arnak takes the first category, theme and production, 3-1. We'll go to mechanisms. I'm going to kick it right back to David.
Yeah, for me, this one's easy. I like Lost Ruins. I like teaching it. I like playing it. I like the card play. I think the more I play games, the more I realize how much I like multi-use cards and just the card play I can get with them. Also, how it combines deck building, kind of going up a track. I do like all the things that kind of come together in Lost Ruins. I think Castles has some good stuff, and they'll probably tell you a lot about it here, but it just didn't float my boat. So I'm going to pass this one along to Pete.
Oh, you picked me again.
You got to go at some point, Pete.
Yeah, I want to know what you guys are thinking, though, first. Yeah, the one mechanic I really, really like out of Castles of Mad King Ludwig is that ordering of the amount that is going to be bid on those, tiles. I think that really is what's special about the game and what I like about it. However, with that being said, I really love my deck builders, and I just like the mechanisms with Lost Ruins of Arnak, where you're playing those cards. It seems like you have two workers, and it's like this game's going to go fast. But by the time you get to the end of the game, you're just triggering things over and over and over again. And I think I like that arc that the game gives me. So I'm going to go with Lost Ruins of Arnak for mechanisms. Over to Daniela.
All right, so I'm actually going to say Castles of Mad King Ludwig for the simple fact both of these are great games. I really like the worker placement, but I really, really, really enjoy tile laying, and I thought that was a really interesting part of this game, and there was a lot to look for during that as you're laying the game. It's just one of those things. It's one piece of a large game for both of these that have a lot of mechanics that are really cool. But that's one piece that I really enjoy playing in a game. Chris.
Yeah, when I look at Lost Ruins of Arnak, the amount of things you can do, you look at it, you say, I have two workers. How am I ever going to do it? It's going to be so fast, and I'm not going to be able to do anything. And in the first couple of rounds, like you said, at first that's true. But then you start to chain things together. I love when you're chaining actions. That's awesome. And the fact, again, you're doing all that, and you got two workers, and you can go turn after turn after turn. That's awesome. But again, you kind of stole my thunder too, Pete. The idea of, okay, I get to set how much each of these rooms cost. I can look at what each of you are doing. I can screw you over at the same time, or I need money, and this is where I get it. I love that as well. I like tile laying games. I'm going to go with Castles of Mad King Ludwig as well, which means we have a 2-2 tie. Dave, our fifth Meeple, who usually breaks ties for us, isn't able to be with us. So we're going to let that tie ride, and we're going to move on to value for your time. And I'm going to go back to Daniela.
All right, so value for your time. There is quite a bit of, I would say, setup in Lost Ruins. I think not playing the deluxeified version of Mad King, it's layout, it's stack the tiles, and they all come in a nice little insert, I believe, as well. And you kind of can just start playing. I think for the value for your time on that, I'm going to go with Castles of Mad King Ludwig, just for the simple fact of the time it takes to set it up. Pete.
Yeah, I'm going to be on the other side of this. I have played a lot more games of Lost Ruins of Arnak. I just enjoy it very much. I feel like when we get it to the table, I just get a lot of value out of it. So I'm going to go that way. I'm going to go over to Chris.
Yeah, I'm actually going to go to Castles of Mad King Ludwig. And it's just, they both take about the same amount of time. I don't think either one is that bad with respect to setup. And I don't know, I don't feel like there's a huge amount of downtime in Castles, but there's not a huge amount. It's just such a tough one, and it's just okay. Where am I leaning? And hey, what would I want to spend my time? If I've got 2 hours, what am I doing? I'm playing castles. So, David, what do we got?
To me, this isn't that challenging to me. Maybe if you listen to my other review about these games, Lost Ruins is going to do this one for me. I just feel like time just goes. I mean, I don't know. I do feel like for me, for whatever reason, Castles just doesn't always click, and I do feel like the time goes slow. So that's just me. If you like what I have to say, that's what I'm saying on this one.
All right, so another tie for value for your time. Again, giving you an idea of how close these are. We're going to let that one ride too. We go to replayability. I'm going to start this. Lost Ruins, when I first started playing it, I felt like, okay, there's a lot going on here. How do you figure it out? And now I feel like whenever I play it, I know what I've got to do. If you're not going up that research track, you're not winning. You got to find the combinations there. To me, it starts to get a little bit samey. You go to the expansions, then it gets different. You've got different players you can play as. Just for the base game, I'm going to go with Castles again, and I'll kick it over to David so he can vote for Lost Ruins, and we'll see where we go.
Yeah, I would vote normally for Lost Ruins, but this one on replayability, I do think that there is a certain way that it's more probable that you're going to win when you start playing Lost Ruins a lot, and so for that reason, I'm going to go with Castles. I think that, for whatever reason, I actually looked at my win-loss ratio. I actually do better on Castles, so maybe I should vote more Castles, but I do think there's a lot more replayability just because of the randomness that pops up every time, and you can't predict necessarily where you're going to go, where I think there is a set path that you can start to predict with Lost Ruins when you play it a lot more. So therefore, I'm going to go with Castles on this one. I'm kicking it over to Daniela.
This one's tough. Replayability. So for both of these games, I'm going to go with Lost Ruins of Arnak because of the card deck here. There is a lot you can do to change the way that the game is played. I think once I seen the tiles in Castles, there's a lot of cool things, but if you're bringing out certain rooms all the time and you can't ever get that one room of a number 7 or whatever tile piece that you need to come out, that can get really irritating really fast. And so for me, I don't know. I'm going to go with Lost Ruins.
Wow. I didn't see that one coming.
Yeah, well, there's going to be a little advantage for Castles of Mad King Ludwig. I think during the setup of it, there's just a lot of variety with all the different tiles that may come out. You don't know that. And just the variability of pricing those tiles. Every game's going to be different. You're also building your own little tableau out, and that castle's going to look different every single time. I enjoy Lost Ruins of Arnak, but just from the point of replayability, every time I play Castles of Mad King Ludwig, it's going to feel different versus where we're going with Arnak and we're just racing up that track is the ultimate way to win. So that's my vote.
All right, Castles. So Castles of Mad King Ludwig wins replayability 3-1 over Lost Ruins. We are now at 1-1 in categories with those two ties. We go to Fun Factor to decide it all. Maybe. We'll see how it is, how it's been going. I'm going to kick it back just because he keeps, don't come to me already. I'm going to Pete. Fun Factor, Pete.
Why'd you come to me? Fun Factor, I enjoy both of these games. I just enjoy Lost Ruins of Arnak a little bit better. It's super duper close. I will play any one of these either day of the week. If there's two tables set up, I'm going to try to play both tables at one time, but I think I'll lean over towards Lost Ruins of Arnak. Daniela?
Yeah, I agree with you, Pete. I think both of these games are great. I enjoy them both a lot for different reasons, but the one I enjoy more is going to be Lost Ruins. David?
Wow. I cannot believe that. So I'm going to cast my vote, and this one is easy for me. It's Lost Ruins on this one. I just think that the part where you just can keep playing until you can't anymore. It's like squeezing, I like grapefruit in the morning. It's like squeezing every last drop out of that grapefruit. And I just have that feeling every time I play Lost Ruins, and it doesn't go away. And I just want to keep squeezing. Can I get another turn out of here? So I love it. Going over to Chris.
Yeah, it doesn't matter anymore, but it turns out I'm going to cast my 5th vote in a row for Castles of Mad King Ludwig and watch it fall down. I just enjoy the heck out of this. I bought the app. I've played hundreds of times on the app as well. I get my game out. I enjoy it every single time. Fun factor for me, Castles of Mad King Ludwig, doesn't matter. Lost Ruins of Arnak wins the category, and with a score of 2-1, also buries the competition to advance to the Elite 8 of our Meeple Madness tournament. All right, guys, that was our 12-5 matchup. Usually 12-5 matchups in March Madness can get crazy. That one was pretty stinking close, and I don't know, for me, I thought at least Castles had a chance of bringing it out. Was it a doubt for you guys, or did you know how we were going the whole way?
This was a toss-up for me. I really didn't know how it was going to go.
Easy for me, but...
Yeah, I mean, it's harder with these ones that we're close on. It's just the ones that these are all the games that we picked for a lot of winners. So some are very easy for us to go, no, I don't want to play that. And others are neck and neck.
Yeah, I was surprised to see, Danielle, you actually voted for Lost Ruins more than you voted for Castles and Mad King Ludwig.
Why? I actually own though Lost.
I know, but you're always talking about Castles.
Well,
so.
I like them both. Yeah.
Whatever.
Yeah, I do like to sit back there and watch you guys' faces because I know this was a hard one for you three. So it was fun.
All right, we're going to move on to the next one. This Meeple Madness matchup is kind of hilarious to me because we're talking about how we're pairing up different games. This one's crazy. This is almost like, okay, you got a football team playing against, I don't know, a cricket team. Let's see who wins. I don't even know, but these are two very different games. We have the number 4 seed Concordia against the number 13 seed Camel Up. Concordia is a 2 to 5 player hand management and set collection game. It's set in the Roman Empire 2,000 years ago. Players guide their dynasties, dispatching colonists to remote realms to develop their trade network and, of course, please the gods. Concordia was designed by Matt Gertz and was first published in 2013 by Rio Grande Games. Its current BGG ranking, it's top 25, right at number 25. It sank Aquatica in episode 36 to win a spot here in our tournament. Camel Up is a 3 to 8 player dice rolling, betting, and bluffing game where a crazy camel circle the desert in the most raucous race ever to hit the dunes. Camel Up was designed by Stefan Bogan and was first published in 2014 by Eggert Spiel. That's just fun to say in and of itself. And its current BGG ranking is 260. I think it's way too high. Camel Up outraced Downforce in episode 18 to make the tournament. This is a 13-4 matchup. Those have also been known to lead to some pretty stunning upsets. Let's put on our togas and start racing around the sand with theme and production. Daniela.
All right, theme and production. You guys already know which way I'm going for a lot of this. Concordia, not a bad game. Not necessarily a fun game to look at. It's very flat. It's very brown. It's got just plain little tiles on it. Camel Up, I mean, you get a pyramid. Very cool. I know people complain about the pyramid flipping it over and the rubber band piece of it. I think they have upgraded that a little bit. However, Camel Up also has these awesome little camels that you can race around. They're wooden, but they stack. Very cool. There's betting. It's just a very fun mad dash. I will never forget my first time playing this game. So theme and production for me goes to Camel Up. David.
Well, I am a big fan of the color burgundy. I'm actually wearing a burgundy colored shirt on right now. Yeah, I think theme and production, I get what Danielle is saying, but for me, I'm going to go with Concordia. They do have ship meeples, which I tend to like a lot too, so don't forget that. And their components are all very nice. They're made out of wood. They're very solid. And so I think production-wise, to me, I just think about that pyramid for, I just can't get over how that pyramid mechanism works. But as far as the theme goes, yeah, I just like being a merchant trading on the seas of the Mediterranean. So that's where I'm going. Kicking it over to Chris.
Well, if you like being a merchant on the seas, that's good because you got about 1,000 games to pick from that all have that same theme. And I think this is a case where Concordia, I was going to say it's showing its age, but Camel Up is only 1 year younger. And, I just imagine the designers, when he was having his discussion, all right, I'm going to do a racing game. And they're like, oh, okay, another racing game. It's like, no, dudes, camels. All right. And everybody, wait, camels. And they jump and stack on top of each other, and just the craziness of that. And then that fun comes out in the game. We'll talk about fun later. But again, it's a camel race. It's not a race. It's a camel race where there's, I don't know. Concordia, the production is decent on both. The theme just like that. It's just fun. Camel Up for me. Pete, are you with me?
I'm with you. Yeah. The theme, it's just so much fun. I love my dry Euros. I love the trading in the Mediterranean and all that. The really cool thing with the production, those camels, stacking them on there, you would think it wouldn't work. It works well. As Daniela said, they fixed the pyramid. I know the original version that I have, there's some issues trying to get it out. I think they really fixed that in the other one. Theme and production, Camel Up every day of the week.
All right, so Camel Up takes theme and production 3-1 over Concordia. We'll go to mechanisms. I mean, these games are practically the same in mechanisms, right? It should be a really, really easy comparison. And so I'm just going to make it miserable. I'm going to go to Pete. You got to go first again.
the mechanism of betting, I don't think we see that enough in games. And just being able to bet a number of different ways, and you may not even commit to a bet, but your influence in the game, you're always part of it. The mechanisms in trading is changing resources, and that there are some really great mechanisms with that where, you're struggling to try to, do I have enough space for the resources? And there's hard decisions in that. But as far as the mechanisms, rolling them dice, shaking them, seeing what comes out, the hooping and hollering, I'm going to go with Camel Up. Daniela.
Already?
It is now.
Oh, man. All right. Mechanisms. I like that you touched on the betting piece of this, Pete. I remember the first time we played this, we had a ton of people playing. I think the max allowed. We were all standing around the table. We're all engaged and excited about the game. We're all betting on it. It was a really, really cool piece of the game. Merchants. I talked about this in a couple episodes or a couple, I guess, games ago as we were going through the Meeple Madness. Just you can get a little samey when you're being a merchant and you're going from town to town and, okay, I'm getting my fabric and I'm doing this and, okay, maybe I want some coins. Overall, I think the mechanisms work better for me in Camel Up. So that's what I'm going to go with. Chris.
Yeah, I think the mechanisms, again, are really good in both of these. Concordia, the way, again, you're doing the management of the hand and the way you can decide what your hand contains and you can build a hand for that. That's done really well. It does get kind of samey as you're building it out. Camel Up, though, I'm usually not much for a betting, and there's a lot of chance in there. I usually don't like a lot of chance built into a game. Am I making the bet at the right time? And despite all of that says, this usually isn't my thing, this isn't usually my thing, man, I just enjoy the heck out of Camel Up. And that tells me that it can, if you can take a mechanism that I don't like and make me want to play that game because of the way you implement it and the way you work into the theme, I'm in. And I've got to give it the nod. So I'll go to Camel Up, and we'll go to David. Mechanisms.
Yeah, so my vote doesn't count, but again, I am wearing a burgundy shirt today, so I'm going to go with Concordia on this one. I just feel like I don't ever have agency in Camel Up. I get it. It's luck. It's all this stuff, but I just feel like what my decisions there aren't very impactful. I feel like that I could just flip a coin, decide what whatever heads or tails is, and hopefully hope for the best. I don't feel like I have that much agency on that game for whatever the reason is. I do have a lot of fun playing it. I just don't know if my decisions, if I were to go back and just flip a coin and say go left or right, if it would matter much. With Concordia, I just think the strategic aspect of when you play cards, knowing that we all have the same cards to start the game with, and then progressively building your engine, especially on how you score victory points there. I like the mechanisms are all built into the card. So, what you're scoring at the end of the game is actually based off what you're buying as well. So for that reason, I like how they tie in together. And so I'm going to go with Concordia with mechanisms.
All right, but Camel Up wins mechanisms as well, 3-1 over Concordia. We'll go to value for your time. David, since your vote didn't matter last time, I'll give you the first one here.
For value for my time, this one's a little bit tougher. Both of these games play really quick in my head. I don't actually notice time going slow, which is where I always start with value of time. Do these games play slow in my mind? Is there any lag time? I feel like both of them play really fast. I think it just is, what flavor do I want in that game? That's hard. I'm going to go with Concordia, but just very slightly. I think it has value over time. Even though it's a lot longer game, I do get a lot of enjoyment out of playing it. I'm going to kick this one over to Daniela next.
All right, so value for your time, they're both not long games. I think Concordia took us last time an hour or 20 minutes or something like that. So you're not sitting there, milling over the game. Camel Up, it's got, quite a few rounds, but it can go faster, it can go slow, depending on how you're kind of rolling and betting. I'm not sure the full time that takes, but there is a little bit of setup to that. I guess overall value for your time, if I'm thinking about my time and what I want to do and the gameplay, I would rather teach and play Camel Up. Pete.
Yeah, I'm going to agree with you, Daniela. The value, it's an easier game to get to the table, I think. It's more accessible to, again, we talk about, not necessarily gamers playing it. This is one where I'm going to lean towards just having it more accessible than, if I'm going to play a game against a gamer, I'll probably want to play Concordia. But in general, if it's coming out, the value just that you get from it. And when I talk about value, there's that fun part in that. It's just going to be Camel Up. Chris?
All right, Camel Up is definitely shorter, but when I look at Concordia, while it's a longer game than Camel Up, I think it's a shorter game compared to other ones of that depth and of that weight. Every time I play Concordia, I'm surprised at how fast it went through. I'm always, Camel Up, you're always engaged, but Concordia too, for the kind of game it is, it comes back to you really fast. I'm always engaged the whole time, and it's a longer game, but I think for the weight and everything that you have to put into that game, Concordia is a bigger value for my time here. And if I've got an hour and 20 to kill, I'm probably doing Concordia instead of 3 or 4 games of Camel Up. So I'll go with Concordia, which means it's actually a 2-2 tie. We're going to let that one ride and go to replayability. Daniela.
All right, replayability. I think if you know Concordia and you know the cards and you have a great plan that you are trying to go on, I think replayability in Concordia can be quite good and strategic depending on how you're playing and what the cards are coming out and how you and the randomness of the tiles that come out. I mean, last time we were very short on, I think it was wheat or hay or something like that. Very interesting take on the game. So I think that is a really cool element. Camel Up is pretty straightforward. You're going around the track. You're kind of doing the same thing. You don't really know how people are going to bet. It's a little more chancy. I think there's a little bit more thought process in Concordia for the replayability. So I'm going to go with Concordia on this time. Chris.
I am actually going to go with Concordia as well. I think Camel Up, it's fun, but it's kind of the same over and over again. It doesn't mean you will do the same things every time. You can't, but I feel like it's the same feel. Concordia, we talked about it when we talked about it on the show. David, the last game we played together, you played a totally different way, and you darn near pulled it off with the win. Just so many different ways to play it. The setup can be different every single time. Anytime someone blocks you right off the bat, it's okay, who's going first, who's blocking you, and okay, I haven't even taken my first turn, and because of where everybody went, I've got to change, and okay, I'm going to take a different approach. It's Concordia for me. I'll go to Pete.
Yeah, I'm going to start by saying Camel Up, I enjoy the game. I think it's a simple game. There's a couple mechanics. It's the people that interact that make the fun out of it. There's just more replayability in Concordia with the setup of the game, the different interactions that you're going to have with the people at the table. So I am just going to go with Concordia. David.
Well, it's good to see that everybody finally knows what color I'm wearing. Burgundy. Okay, so I'm going with Concordia on this one as well. For the variety of reasons that were just given, but especially for victory conditions, I just feel the replayability, because you don't know necessarily what's always going to score well, and you can build towards that, and you factor in the whole time in your decision making on what you really want to score and how you want to play that game. And if you see other people doing things, sometimes you have to go out of your way to make sure that they can't multiply their effect really high, even if it doesn't really help you. So I do think there's just a multitude of ways to win this game, and for that reason, replayability is very high for me on that game. So Concordia.
All right, so Concordia sweeps replayability to win the category. Camel Up is still winning 2-1 in categories. We go to the fun factor. We'll see where this one goes. I'll go to David.
So when it comes to fun factor, I think about all the times that I play both of these games, which ones do I have the most memories on? And it actually goes to Camel Up. I just remember some of the chain reactions that happen. You need 18 things to happen, and if they all pull off, you remember that game no matter what you do. And I think that the fun of the table rooting for those crazy things to happen, and as the sequence falls in and falls into place, and more people are like, there's no way that other thing can happen to trigger that thing. And when you see it all happen, if you've ever been to a game of Camel Up and you see all those things combined together, you don't even care sometimes if you win or lose, because you're like, I cannot believe those 7 things happened so that Daniela could get her camel across the line and beat Pete, which out of nowhere. So for those reasons, I'm going with fun factor on Camel Up. Kicking it over to Daniela.
Well, I was recently at Half Price Books, and I had this game Camel Up in my cart. I didn't get it because I couldn't decide if I wanted that crappy little pyramid or if I wanted the newer version, but it was $30. It was the OG version. I'll probably kick myself one day for not buying it, but this is a game that I'm interested in. I would add it to my collection. Again, to what David said, I just enjoy the heck out of standing around and you're cheering for the randomness and chaos of the betting of the people around you. And it's just a good time. Chris.
Yeah, I'm going to go with Camel Up as well. I wrote down a word for each game. I was like, well, how would I describe Camel Up? It was chaotic. How would I describe Concordia? And what I came up with was methodic. And if I'm going to go with fun factor, I think chaotic takes methodic any day. So it's Camel Up for me. Last man standing is Pete. It doesn't really matter, but I'll let you give your vote anyway.
Well, I got a camel in this race.
There you go.
I'm going to go with Camel Up. We talked about it before, the stand-up moments where everybody's just waiting to see what's going to happen. There's always laughter. It's just so enjoyable. It's so accessible to everybody, too. I know we mentioned our fifth Meeple, Dave. This is a game that he can actually take with his parents who are fairly elderly, and they still enjoy it. And a game that you can share with people, and they get it, they have fun with it. That's what the fun factor is for me.
Yeah.
Camel Up every day.
And I know David's wearing a burgundy shirt, as he said, but it says Fireball on it, and nobody likes Fireball. So there we go. Chris, take us out.
All right, Camel Up wins fun factor easily, 4-0, and wins this battle easily as well with the score of 3-1. Camel Up pulls off the major upset to advance to the Elite Eight of our Meeple Madness tournament. Guys, that's a 13 seed taken out a 4 seed. Did you kind of see it coming, though?
I did.
This is one of my dark camels or dark horses that I'm pulling for.
I didn't know how. I think I knew how David would vote. I didn't know you, Chris.
Yeah, and that's what's surprising me about Camel. It's not my kind of game. You tell me about these mechanisms, like I'm not interested.
Yeah.
And then I play, it's like, okay, that was really, really fun. And I'm
introvert is coming out.
Yeah, it is. This is a game that where I as an introvert, I'm being active. I'm being loud in Camel Up, and I'm probably getting frustrated with the stupid rolls and stuff. But I saw this coming. I'm surprised it's not ranked higher than what it is, but I think that's a BGG thing, and people tend towards heavier games. Camel Up's a great game. It deserved to win.
Yeah, you should have bought that $30 copy OG. Prices are going up. No, I'm just messing with you.
It's probably still there.
All right, this next battle I think is going to be interesting because I've mentioned a couple of times last show and this one that, hey, these are all winners of our past battles, so these are all good games. We all love these games. This one's a little different story. Neither of these games really comes in with a ringing endorsement from the fifth Meeple. They won their battles, but we're not recommending these, or at least half of us in each case isn't recommending it. We have the number 6 seed Viticulture, which 2 of us I think like a lot, and 2 of us don't really ever want to see it again. And on the other side, we've got the number 11 seed Earth, which won its battle on our show, along with a ton of accolades from the board gaming community, but none of us are really enamored by it, and it really hasn't found its way back to our table since. So this could be interesting for those interesting reasons. But Viticulture, just to give a quick summary, is a 1 to 6 player worker placement game, hand management, contract fulfillment, set in pre-modern Tuscany. You've just inherited a vineyard, and it's up to you to turn your meager vines into fine wines. Viticulture was designed by Jamie Stegmaier and Alan Stone and was first published in 2013 by Stonemaier Games. Its current BGG ranking is 39 if you look at the newer version of it, and it plowed past Agricola in episode 33 to win a spot in Meeple Madness. Earth is a 1 to 5 player card-driven engine-building game that empowers you to build your own island comprised of a vast array of flora and terrain designed to match your climate. Earth was designed by Maxime Tardif and was first published in 2023 by Inside Up Games. Its current BGG ranking is 197, and it clipped Wingspan in episode 14 to make the tournament. Let's get this one started. Theme and production, David. You got a wine-colored shirt over. I just want to point out.
Wait,
he's taking his shirt off.
Colored shirt. Exactly.
Put it on.
To me on this one, I think the productions on these are actually both pretty good if I'm looking just at production. I mean, Earth is just a lot of cards, so what are you going to do on that? The production on Viticulture, I always think Stonemaier has a good production on all their games that they produce. But the theme, to me, I'm not a wine drinker. I don't really do that. So I'm going to have to just go with Earth just because I don't drink wine. And I do like the Earth. And, that's where I'm at with that. So anyways, I'm going to kick it over to Pete.
Yeah, Earth has, as you said, basically it's cards. The artwork on the cards, it's really not artwork, it's photos,
right,
are really beautiful. They really are. So from the production point of that, I think it's great. The thing that I enjoy, though, is the theme, I think, just comes through with Viticulture. And I think the production's on par with what it is with Earth, with the pictures and even the other components that are there. So I'm going to go with Viticulture more so for the theme than Earth. I'm going to go over to Danielle.
This is a hard one because if I'm just taking the game of how it's produced and the theme of it, Viticulture is very straightforward. You see the seasons very clearly mapped out. You see I guess, how you're supposed to make wine, which I still don't. It's just not hitting me. I even worked at a vineyard. I should know those things, but some of that doesn't make sense to me, but that doesn't mean it doesn't make sense to other people. And I know Pete and Chris, they are making the best wines in Ohio, actually, through this game. But Earth is also very interesting as well. I love the cards. I love the cubes that you're stacking on your cards. I love building the little things that are going upwards. It has a growing theme to it. However, I will say the production of that is a little bit more difficult when it's sitting in front of you and you're just going, what am I supposed to do with this game? So just for the straightforwardness of it all, sorry, David, I'm going to go with viticulture. Chris.
Wow.
I'm sorry.
No, just messing with you.
Yeah, for me, it's viticulture easily. The theme in viticulture comes through so well. It makes it easier to teach the game because everything makes sense. I'm doing this, to do that. I think the theme is just amazing in this one. Production's awesome too. I love those little grape tokens that you put out there. All kinds of little mini wooden meeples that are shaped like certain things. Earth, theme-wise, I like the Earth too. I mean, I kind of live here, but I'm still not sure. What does that mean? You're making an island. Who are we supposed to be?
We're making ecosystems, man.
But
I don't understand
who makes an
that.
ecosystem? What does that even mean? And the production, it's a bunch of cards, it's cardboard chits. It's viticulture, easy for me, which means viticulture takes theme and production 3-1. We'll go to mechanisms, and I'll kick it right back to Daniela.
All right. So mechanisms for this, I think there are two totally different, obviously, that are pitting against each other. I like in Earth the engine building. It takes a second to get it going. It takes a little bit of time to start figuring out how you're going to seed each of your individual cards and how you're going to build them. And there's a little bit of race to, you got to, I think it's like 16 cards you got to get out in there and start building off of them. There's other, I would say, challenges that you can go for as well. So there's a lot going on in this game that you can attempt to do. In viticulture, it is very, I would say, a little bit straightforward, but to me, the mechanisms of those cards, I can't remember if it's yellow or whatever color card that is not working for the game. It frustrates me because if you're not getting the color grapes that you need to do what you need to do to make the wines and the blends and all, it's very frustrating. And so for me, I know there's a lot more to Earth, but I think it's a little bit easier to divert and do other things if you need to do it. So I'm going to go with Earth. David.
Yeah, to me, this one's pretty easy. Danielle kind of described my experience with viticulture too. I just feel like some of the mechanisms don't mesh well. I think there's a lot of luck in what you kind of get. I don't really see a lot of ways you can mitigate some of the stuff, unfortunately. And when I think about Earth, I do like that when we're playing, if Chris picks an action, that I get to do something while Chris is doing something, because I just take that action but at a lesser degree. And so anytime I can play a simultaneous game where somebody's doing something and I'm doing something on their turn, I do like those kind of games just because I'm always involved, I'm always active. So for those mechanisms, and I think Earth was one of the first ones to kind of do something like that, to me, I'm going to pick Earth because I do like that. I can teach this game, but everybody's always doing something at the table when I choose what action I want to do. So going over to Chris.
Yeah, this one's tough for me. I agree with what you said on Earth, that I like the idea of, hey, I need this action, but I can see David's going to have to take it. So I'm not going to take it. I'm going to take a more powerful action. The weaker action works for me. It gets me what I want to do. And I take that little bit of chance that, okay, he's going to do what I think he's going to do. At the same time, I'm not as bothered as much by the fact that, you got to get the right grapes. Because that's happened to me before. And you can go to the spot to get you a green card. And then that's relatively early and you go and you get 2 green cards in your spot. I think it's a different game when you play the original than when you play the Essential Edition. Some people like one, some people like the other. Either way, I like that tightness of the spots. I'm going with viticulture still. I'll kick it to Pete to see what we do.
Yeah. So Earth is a game that I bought when it came out. I heard all the hype about it. It was really hyped up. I tried it, and I'm going to be selfish here. There are 2 mechanics that I really don't love. One of them is multiplayer solitaire, and the other is tableau building. And I'm just playing multiplayer solitaire. I just enjoy viticulture more. The mechanics are there. The mechanics make sense. You get your cards, and you're playing those cards, and it feels like you're building, a winery and selling the the wine. I'm going to go with viticulture.
All right, so an even split and a split in the direction that if I had to predict on any of these, how's it going to be split? These are the people that would have voted for what I thought. 2-2, mechanisms. Nobody wins that category. We'll let it ride and go to value for your time. I'll start. I'm sticking with viticulture. I have a good time with this. The games roll relatively quickly. I think there's a lot of interesting decisions going along the way. Earth, sometimes I feel like I either I've got too many cards or I don't have, and somehow I have too many cards and don't have the cards that I want. I've got a handful of 20-some cards, and that's frustrating for me. When I'm frustrated, it's not a good value for my time. Viticulture for me, I'll go to Danielle.
Interestingly enough, though, Earth only took us like an hour to play and viticulture took us like an hour and 45. So, I think when you're getting towards the end of viticulture, if you've not played your beginning half of the game right, like you're kind of just like waiting for the seasons to come and die in the snow. And really at the end of viticulture, you should be making wine that you're selling and you're making money on. And if you haven't done that, that's like a really tragic moment. Like, at a point in the game where you're just like, I'm watching everybody else prosper and I'm not. I will say, for the value for your time, there's probably a ton of setup in Earth. There's a lot of cards, there's a lot of things to stack, there's a lot of things to set up. I guess overall value for my time, I keep staring at these. I don't know which one to pick. I'm just going to go with Earth. I think I am having more fun with that game, trying to figure out my ecosystem in my own little mode and solitary moment. Pete.
Yeah, the value I get from playing Earth, as I said, it's multiplayer solitaire. I've played a couple of games of it. The scores are, you don't even know who wins until the end. There's no competitiveness for me. You just find out what your score is, and that's it. For me, that's not value. I want something that I can strive for. If I have to make changes because of what's dealt to me, I like to know what I can do. I like the worker placement. Value for the time, it's going to be viticulture. David?
Yeah, I think we're getting split on this one for value for your time. I'm going to go with Earth on this. I mean, I look at the time in retrospect. Time just moves so slow when I play viticulture for whatever reason. I just feel like I'm always like, this game should have ended like 20 minutes ago. And I say that after the first minute. So it could just be some games just don't stick with you. This game is just one that has never stuck with me, even probably worse than Castles if you listen to that episode. But Earth, I just always feel like even if you're out of it, at least you're doing something. I feel like you, even though you're playing solitaire, you still do have agency over what you're doing. You might not get the cards you want, but there's a zillion different ways you can go. Actually, I think that's a detriment, like kind of Chris was saying. Sometimes you have like 40 cards in your hand and you're like, but you don't have the one card you need. So, but at least you have cards and you have options. Sometimes when I feel like I'm playing the other game, I don't have options. I'm like, I need to draw this one card so I can do something with my vineyard, and I don't grab it. I'm like, I'm going to wait a whole nother season to come all the way back to fall so I can try to grab this card again, and then somebody's going to block me off that spot. So I just don't have fun with that. So value for my time, I am going with Earth.
All right, so another 2-2 tie and value for your time. We'll go to replayability. I'll start this one, and I'm going to mix it up a little bit. I was going to wait to hear what everybody thought. The more I just sat here thinking about it, replayability, I do think when I play viticulture, I'm trying to do the same thing each time. I have a lot of fun doing it, but still, it's relatively samey. And Earth, while maybe I'm not having a huge amount of fun doing it, it's going to be different every single time, I feel like. I'll go with Earth, which is the first time I've voted that way. I'll kick it to Pete.
No, I'm not voting with you. The replayability, again, I can play solitaire. I can just get a deck of cards and play. And that's what I feel like it is when I play Earth. Yeah, I like that it's multiplayer and simultaneous, and we're all kind of playing at the same time, but I'm playing my own game. And I just have... I think for me personally, the replayability, I think there's more deck cards out there in each era. I think you have to play those cards more. And as you said, you get so many cards in your hand, I don't even know what to keep, what to throw away. You think of it as a puzzle, but everybody's rushing around. I just don't enjoy it. So who's next, David?
Sure, I'll go with this one. For replayability, I'm just going to let the cat out of the bag. I'm going to go with Earth on this one for replayability. I mean, I don't think I've seen every card in the game, not nearly every card, even though every card, I feel like I have like 50 cards every time I play this game for whatever reason when I build my engine. But the replayability for is why I think Viticulture, because Viticulture, I should like it. It's worker placement. It's blocking out of spots. It's doing all these things. But for whatever reason, in the combination that it gives me, I just don't like it. I just don't find that I have enough agency maybe in that game. I feel like I'm always getting blocked out of spots, and I get it. Like, there's other games, but I don't have enough mitigation, I guess, is what I'm looking for. I don't have enough mitigation to try to affect when I get a bad run of things. Like, I think of Castles of Burgundy, I could mitigate some of those dice rolls. I could do things to affect, where I'm going. And for whatever reason, I just don't feel like there's enough of that in the replayability of that game. So I'm going with Earth. I'm going to kick it over to Daniela.
Yeah, I think viticulture drives me crazy for a couple reasons. One is that I want to be able to do the things and grow the grapes and make the grapes and sell the grapes and do all the things that I'm supposed to do. In the past couple times I've played, I've not been able to do that at all. And I don't know what I'm really missing in that, but I would assume that after playing 3-4 times that I would have been able to figure something out. I don't feel like I'm really accomplishing anything, which is frustrating. Maybe down the road I'll be able to have that click and I'll understand that, and I can, I know, just like we were talking with Lost Ruins, you have to go up the track to win. That's what you got to do, and that's what you're really trying to go for. And this game, I don't know what I'm doing. And even though I got smacked in Earth, like, I have a little bit more agency to do what I need to do to kind of have fun by myself. So that's what I'm going to go with.
All right, so Earth gets its first victory here for replayability, 3-1 over Viticulture. We are tied going into the final category, Fun Factor. I'm going to start. I enjoy myself playing Viticulture. Earth, I don't feel like I'm having fun. It's an okay puzzle. Viticulture, I see it, I smile, I say, okay, I want to do that. It's Viticulture for me. I'm going to David so that he can even it back up.
Yeah, for this one, I feel like I hope I'm not coming across like this, but I don't want to give a glowing endorsement to Earth, because actually I don't always have fun playing Earth either. I just never have fun playing Viticulture. So I guess that's the difference to me. So I just don't ever have fun playing Viticulture, and I have a little bit of fun, actually just not even that much fun, but I have a little bit more fun playing Earth, just because at least I'm doing something and nobody can block me. So I'm going to go with that for Fun Factor. I'm going back to Earth at that glowing endorsement, but I'm going to kick it over to Pete. I feel like I know what he's going to do, but I'm going to kick it over to him anyways.
Well, I think we should have a tiebreaker with a fun scale, because I think that could make a difference. Fun factor, you guys heard me on the other podcast. This is a game I play with my wife, my boys. It's a game that she'll ask to play. I enjoy playing it. I like the worker placement. I like the card play. I just have more fun over Earth. Again, Earth isn't a bad game, but I think a lot of people who play Earth play it solitaire for whatever reason, because they like building your island. That's just not for me. Daniela.
Parroting off of what David had said earlier, both games are incredible. Like, I'm not rushing to sit down to play either of these games. But at the end of the day, I'm going to move towards Earth on this. Again, I'd like to play more rounds of both games. Maybe my perception will change as my skills change. But, for me, for now, that's where I'm at.
All right, so another tie, 2 votes for Viticulture, 2 for Earth. We have a 1-1 tie overall with 3 ties in categories, which means we start to go into our tiebreakers. Again, we don't have our 5th Meeple Dave, who would have voted Viticulture across the board, probably. But now we go to our different tiebreakers. Our first tiebreaker is which game got the most votes as we went through. Viticulture had 10 and Earth had 10, so we go to second tiebreaker. On the second tiebreaker, we look at our individual votes and we say, okay, which game did David vote for more? Which game did Daniela vote for more? David and Daniela both voted for Earth more than they did Viticulture. Pete and I both voted for Viticulture more than Earth. That tiebreaker doesn't help us either. We go to the third tiebreaker, which I think is going to push us to the fourth tiebreaker. This one's similar to the second tiebreaker. We each get a single vote. Who do we think should have won this battle? I'm going to go first. I think Viticulture should have won this battle. Pete.
Viticulture.
Dave.
Earth.
Daniela.
Earth.
All right, we go to fourth tiebreaker, and this gets a little complicated, but that's what we need because I do not have a fifth tiebreaker, so we need to have a decisive fourth tiebreaker. Here's what we're gonna-
I'm trying to text
no,
Dave.
we're not going to Dave. We know what he's going to do.
I know.
The fourth tiebreaker is this. We're each going to assign a score between 1 and 10 to each game. We have to use a decimal. We can't assign a 7. It's got to be like a 7.3 or a 7.5. We're going to add up all the scores for each of the games that we said, and whichever game, has the highest cumulative score out of those 4 is going to win the tiebreaker. We're going to hit pause, and when we come back, we will have tallied everything up. All right, that was 5 agonizing minutes as we worked through that. And again, we each ranked these games on a scale of 1 to 10. We had to do a decimal, and we'll go through what we did. For viticulture, I rated that an 8.1. Pete rated it an 8.9. Daniela rated it a 5.2. And David gave it the giant 1.5 for a total of 23.7. And again, there's 40 total points. So this tells you, again, what half of us think of each of these games. When we go to Earth, I rated it a 7.2. Pete came in at a 3.1. Daniela a 6.2. David a 6.5 for a total of a 23.0. So 23.7 to 23.0. Viticulture takes the victory, crushes the competition, kind of to advance to the elite. Yes, advance into the Elite 8 of the Meeple Madness tournament. All right, in this next one, we have a perennial heavy hitter against what for many is a holy grail game. This is a 3-14 matchup where we pit the Castles of Burgundy. And by the way, David has a burgundy shirt on today, if you haven't heard. Okay. And we're pitting that against Glory to Rome. And we are certainly a house divided when it comes to Glory to Rome, but we'll see what happens when we battle it out. Now, the Castles of Burgundy, 2 to 4 player, tile drafting and placement game. It settles you into the role of an aristocrat seeking to expand your princedom. The Castles of Burgundy was designed by Stefan Feld and was first published in 2011 by Ravensburger and Elia. Its current BGG ranking is 16. The Castles of Burgundy vacated Grand Austria Hotel in episode 38 to get here. Glory to Rome is a 2 to 5 player card-based city-building game set in ancient Rome. As one of Nero's trusted advisors, you are responsible for rebuilding Rome's infrastructure after a great fire destroyed much of the formerly glorious city. Glory to Rome was designed by Carl Chudiak and Ed Carter and was first published in 2005 by Cambridge Games Factory. Its current BGG ranking is 276, and it toppled Bruges in episode 25 to make the tournament. Let's get the Battle of the Fun started. Theme and production, Castles of Burgundy versus Glory to Rome. Pete.
Yeah, this one's an easy one for me. I am going to go with Castles of Burgundy. We talked about it on the other podcast. Glory to Rome, it's a deck of cards. The artwork isn't that fantastic. From the production point of view, I think Castles of Burgundy, as much as it's a simple game and there are tiles, it just feels more like a game to me than a deck of cards playing a game. So I'm going to go with Castles of Burgundy. Daniela.
Yeah, not talking about the deluxeified version, but just the base games as we played
Yeah.
originally, putting that on the table. Again, you're talking about a deck of cards. Art is old. I know they have a new, is the art updated in the new one? For Glory to Rome that they're coming out with? The
black version, yes, there's a different artwork.
Okay.
Doesn't mean it's good.
Doesn't mean it's good.
Right. Yeah. So, but I still remember when we pulled this out, I was kind of like, oh my gosh, like Pete and Chris have kind of been talking up this game of Castles of Burgundy, and I was kind of like, I don't know if I'm gonna like really understand what's going on here. But it's so bizarre as we were playing it out. The theme and production of that, very simplistic in the simple mechanics of that, as you're playing it out and moving things around was really brilliant to me. So I'm gonna go with Castles of Burgundy. David.
Yeah, so when I think about these games, as far as production goes, if I'm just comparing base games, and because I own Glory to Rome, I own both versions. The version that always sticks in my head, and I think the iconic version that most people have in their head, is of the black box. And when I look at the artwork of just the black box with, it's black and white with Glory to Rome and red underneath it, if I'm just basing it off of that, that's something that I want on my wall, because every time I look at that, I'm like, I like that. When I actually get into the cards and everything else, it is what it may be. The problem is I don't think Castles of Burgundy does anything special for me. When I open up the base game, I do like the deluxeified version, but the base game doesn't really do anything to me either. It's a bunch of beige. You're putting out some tiles, nothing fancy about it. And then, when I look at the themes of both of them, I don't even know. I mean, you could be doing whatever on both of these games. I don't think they really stand out. So just for the iconic image that's always in my head, and the reason why I own the black box version is because I love that artwork of just what the black box version actually looked like. I'm going to go with Glory to Rome. So if you hate it, you hate it. But moving over to Chris.
Yeah, I don't think the theme on either one of these is all that super original. I'm not sure the production on either one of them is all that original either. But I think the production is pretty bad on Glory to Rome. So just by default, Castles of Burgundy is going to win this one for me, which means Castles of Burgundy wins the category theme and production, takes a 1-0 lead. We'll go to mechanisms. I'll kick it back to David.
Yeah, so for the mechanism of this one, I'm a very big proponent for multi-use cards. That's one of my favorite components in a game. I do like worker placement and dice placement and kind of stuff like that, but for whatever reason, I like the mechanism of Glory to Rome. It's a game that's very unique. I don't really play a lot of games like it. I don't know if it's intuitive. I think the mechanisms, especially when you first learn how to play that game, are very confusing, but I think that if you get past all that, and you get past all the awful artwork, there is a really solid game underneath that actually is very complicated and it's very player driven. And so for that reason, I'm going to go with Glory to Rome on mechanisms. Even though I do like the mechanisms on Castles of Burgundy, I think it does them very well. Passing it over to Daniela.
Oh, this is tough. The mechanisms, I think they both play out well. I will say David had some good points on the kind of the card-based game. It does what it's supposed to do. You take the cards, you play the cards, you tuck the cards, you do what you're supposed to do with all the cards. I do like the tile drafting and the dice manipulation in Castles of Burgundy a little bit more. I think it does more for me. There's a little bit more thinking to it. I still think that Glory to Rome is clean, but I'm going to go with Castles of Burgundy. Chris.
Yeah, I really like Castles of Burgundy. I play it a lot. It's a really fun game for me. I think the mechanisms are solid, though I like tile laying, I like dice manipulation as well. And this game puts them together, I think, in a really well done way. At the same time, Glory to Rome, again, a simple card game with some really complicated mechanisms. The first time you're playing, you're like, oh my gosh, how do I keep track of all this? And it's a swim. But for me, once you figure out those mechanisms, it's really fun to try to make them work. And I have not played Glory to Rome enough. I would love to get it to the table, but problem is I don't know if you can play it real well with two, and there's probably only two people around the table that want to play it again. But for me, when I look at those mechanisms, I'm fascinated by Glory to Rome. I'm going to go with it, and I'll kick it to Pete.
Yeah, there's two things that we're talking about, pluses and minuses on each of these games. The thing that you had said where it's confusing, and I think that's a hard sell when you're trying to get it to the table and you're trying to teach somebody. I remember I was just lost. I'm a fairly decent gamer, but it was just confusing for me. When I play Castles of Burgundy, it's simple and the steps make sense. We talk about agency over, your game. I think you have that with the dice manipulation. You always have something to do. When I'm playing Glory to Rome, I just feel like I'm along for a ride, and it's a scary one to me. So I'm going to go with Castles of Burgundy for the mechanics.
All right, so Mechanisms has a tie 2-2. We're going to move on to Value for Your Time. I'll kick it right back to Pete.
Yeah, I don't want to play Glory to Rome. While I may have fun doing it, and we talked about it, it's just not the value for me in playing Castles of Burgundy. It's a game I can play with multiple people. I can introduce it. It's just that value that I have. I want that interaction with people, and you get it in spades when you're playing Glory to Rome, and it may not be fun because it is a mean game. I think it's a little over the top when it comes to mean, and so Castles of Burgundy. Over to Chris.
All right, Value for Your Time. I'm thinking back to when we talked about this in our recent episode, and one of the things that I think we agreed on is that Castles of Burgundy, while it's fun while you're playing it, it does seem like it goes a little too long. And you're always like, okay, wow, how can we have 2 more rounds left? It feels like we should have like a half round left and be done. And I looked at how long I was surprised that Glory to Rome, the average time it takes us to play is about an hour and 11, which is longer than I thought it was. And that says something to me as well, that I didn't realize it was taking that long because it seemed like it was moving along. And I'm going to go with Glory to Rome because as much as I like Castles of Burgundy, it does tend to take a little too long, and Glory to Rome just seems like it takes a lot less time than what it actually did. I will kick it to David.
Yeah, when I was looking at the times played, I was surprised to see an hour and 11 too. Castles of Burgundy, we're over the 2 hour mark. I know we play 4 players all the time, so and I feel like we know that game fairly well, and we're still always around 2 hours. And for whatever reason, I do think at the end of the game, that last couple of rounds is always just, I'm like, why don't we just end the game? Because I don't necessarily get a lot of value out of the last couple of rounds of that game. I mean, turns. I should not say rounds, but actions. So yeah, I'm going to go with value for my time just because it's shorter. And I feel like the time, like Chris was saying, I always feel like the time just goes really fast. And so Glory to Rome for me on this one. Daniela.
Yeah, if you listen to our past episode when we actually talk about the actual Castles of Burgundy and we go into detail on the game, I remember saying the last 2 rounds, I was like, where are we at? Like, how do we still have this much game to play left? I'm actually going to go with Glory to Rome on this because in our last game, I think Chris and I tied.
Yeah,
Chris,
you did.
Admit it.
Stupid game.
I do think that there is a game there. It took me a while to figure out the 2 cards in the middle, like that architect and the builder or something like that. So it took me a second, but I think that there is a game there to be had. And once you get the rules and you understand the flow, it can be a good game for an hour.
All right, so value for your time by a score of 3-1 goes to Glory to Rome.
Glory to Rome.
We'll move on to replayability. We are sitting here tied 1-1 on categories. Replayability, I'm kicking back to Danielle.
Ooh, I really like Castles of Burgundy, but I think Glory to Rome might have a little bit more space based on the chanciness of the cards and the ability to do the different actions with the cards. I enjoy Castles of Burgundy. I know kind of how I'm going to play. I know what tiles are kind of coming out. But I think I'm going to give this one to Glory to Rome. Pete.
Yeah, you guys know I don't like Glory to Rome. But I'm going to agree with you. I think just the chaos that this game ensues, it's always going to feel different. You don't know what's going to happen. I think there's a lot of replayability in Castles of Burgundy too. I mean, there's different areas that you can start with, so you have different goals and objectives and the way that those things come out. I think there's a lot of variability in there and replayability. I hate to say it, but I'm going to go with Glory to Rome.
Ooh.
It hurt. Go ahead, Chris.
I'm going to go with Glory to Rome as well. I feel like Castles of Burgundy, while I do like it, it's kind of the same every single time. Whereas Glory to Rome, there's so many different cards, and it's just, a couple of cards that you get at a certain point is going to define your whole game, and that's going to be different, I think, every time you play it. It's Glory to Rome for me. I'll kick it over to David.
Yeah, I was really hoping Pete would have a good argument for Castles because I was actually more closer to the fence. I think as I played Castles more, I've actually enjoyed it more. But I do think the replayability of Glory, I always go to how can you win a game, and I think there's a lot of ways to win both of these games, but there is a sneaky way to win Glory to Rome that even if you think you're out of it, if you get 2 of these cards to line up, you can come out of nowhere and still win this game, even if you're behind on everything else. And I love games that always give somebody a puncher's chance, even though they're so far behind and somehow they could miraculously pull off a victory. Other people might not like that, but I do. So I'm going to give it replayability to Glory to Rome.
All right, across the board, replayability 4-0, taken by Glory to Rome.
Glory to Rome.
Now we go on. Man, that was just.
Yeah, that
Oh, man, Glory to Rome.
I know. We're surprising ourselves.
Well, that's how I feel about it.
I know. That was like the most painful vote. The most painful vote, Pete, you've ever given.
It hurt. It hurt bad.
All right, well, we'll go to Fun Factor. And because it hurt so bad, I'll go to Pete and allow you to just make yourself feel better again.
Castles of Burgundy. Period. That's it. Daniela?
Man, I wish you wouldn't have come to me next because it's bizarrely enough, I have fun playing Castles of Burgundy, but Glory to Rome brings this chaos again that is fun when we're all engaged in playing it. I can sit in my own comfortable little, hexagonal square and play Castles of Burgundy and make my own little town and have it be all cute. And, even if I lose, like, I feel satisfied. In Glory to Rome, it was a little chaotic. It was like, the cards in the middle weren't there that you wanted, or, it's a little bit more tough. I hate to do this, but I have to say Glory to Rome. Terrible.
You're dead to me.
David, I know. I'm sorry.
So, I know I voted Glory to Rome this whole time, but Castles has been growing on me. And when it comes to fun factor, I just asked myself, if I had to sit down and play a game today, being March something, I'm not going to say because I don't know when this episode is going to publish, but we're in March here in 2025, I actually probably would say Castles. And I can't believe I'm saying that. It pains me a little bit to say that, but Castles has really grown on me. I really didn't like the game the first couple times I played it, and the more I play it, the more I've grown to like it. Where Glory to Rome, I've liked it since I've started, but it's kind of just sat there. And so I'm going to give this one to the one that I feel like has momentum with me right now, and that is Castles of Burgundy. And I'm wearing a burgundy shirt, so I'm just going to roll with it, kicking it over to Chris.
All right, I'm wearing a green shirt. I don't know where that leads me. I enjoy both of these games. I have a lot of fun playing Castles of Burgundy, as I've said many times, but I'm looking to say, if you said, hey, we got time for either one of these, which one are you going to do? I'm doing Glory to Rome, so I'm going to go with Glory to Rome. I think maybe if we played it more, maybe it wouldn't, but it's still got that, man, we haven't played it enough, and I want to get to the table. I recall having fun. It's Glory to Rome for me, which means fun factor is a tie, but when we look back at all of the categories so far, with a score of 2-1, Glory to Rome rises from the rubble and advances to the Elite Eight of our Meeple Madness tournament.
Glory to Rome.
All right, we have two more battles left in the Sweet 16. Next up, we have 30-year-old El Grande up against the 10-year-old Champions of Midgard. El Grande is a 2-to-5 player area control game that places you in the role of a Grande, a member of the high aristocracy in 15th century Spain, controlling events and expanding your influence across 9 regions. El Grande was designed by Wolfgang Kramer and Richard Ulrich and was first published in 1995 by Hans im Gluck. Its current BGG ranking is 92, top 100 here, and it pushed out Shogun in episode 16 to make this year's tournament. Champions of Midgard is a 2-to-4 player worker placement, set collection, and dice rolling game that takes place in the Viking stronghold of Midgard. The Jarl has died, prompting monsters to wreak havoc and giving Viking leaders like us the opportunity to gain glory and the favor of the gods. Champions of Midgard was designed by Ole Steinus and was first published in 2015 by Grey Fox Games. Its current BGG ranking is 153, and Champions of Midgard laid blame on Lords of Waterdeep, one of our favorites, in episode 31 to make the tournament. Let's start this battle between two oldies but goodies with theme and production. Pete.
To me. All right. Well, with that being said, there's a new Kickstarter out there for Champions of Midgard. It's all blinged out. It's a special edition. I am not buying it. My copy's already blinged out. So I just wanted to kind of throw that out there. Both of these games I really do like. I think the production are on par for each other. I think they have good components. I think the boards are well laid out. They're pretty visible. The theme for me, battling monsters, I just think that's a little bit more fun than the area control, just placing workers out there. So I'm just going to go with Champions of Midgard. It's very close, but that's my vote. Chris, back at you.
Yeah, I think that the theme on El Grande, somewhat blah. The production is okay. It's got that cute little castle, though, and when you open that castle and the people come storming out of the castle, I think that's pretty good, or the Castillo, whatever that's called.
Tower.
I do like just a tower. That's just called a tower.
It's not a castle.
I think it's a Castillo.
Castillo. I think it's Castillo.
Anyway.
Caballeros.
Thanks. Champions of Midgard, I don't know. The theme's okay, but I don't know that all Vikings are battling monsters. I think that's been overdone. I'm still sitting here trying to understand why it's important to gather for set collection, to get one of each card and all that. I understand why it's important in the game. You got to balance it out, and you don't want someone specializing. But from a theme standpoint, I just don't get it. It doesn't kind of move in. And without the Valhalla expansion, I think it's a much more boring game than with the Valhalla expansion. If I'm looking at base games, I'm going with El Grande. I'll kick it to Danielle.
All right. So I actually think that Vikings do battle trolls, and that's a really big thing over in Viking area controlled Europe.
They're still
Norway.
battling trolls to this day.
Yeah, it's like a big thing.
But when they go out, they say, "Okay, I need a yellow monster today."
Yeah,
So-
they have to get all their friends of one of each different color. I actually really liked the layout and the board in Champions of Midgard. I thought it was super neat. When we pulled it out, I'm like, what do I got to do with these? Taking these boats across the water, and then we're got to go to battle trolls, but we also have to play on certain areas. I don't know. I thought it was super interesting. I'm just going to go with Champions of Midgard. David.
Oh, this one's a little bit tough. I do like both these games. When I just look at, if I'm walking up on a table, which table am I stopping at? Because I'm just looking at production on the table, the theme. I don't know. They come out a little bit. El Grande is kind of more of a generic theme. I mean, I'd be like, oh, you're just playing Risk over there on a board with a big tower. But Champions, I think, I do like the artwork. I do like that the board's really colorful. So for all of those reasons, and maybe I feel like a little bit more like I'm a Viking and trying to battle a troll, I guess, I'm going to go with Champions on this one I think it's just a little bit better theme-wise that I can buy into than El Grande. So Champions of Midgard for me.
All right, Champions of Midgard wins theme and production 3-1. We move on to mechanisms. Right back to David.
Oh, so for mechanisms, I don't know. I'm going to go with El Grande. It's simple. It's a simple mechanism, but I just get so much out of it. I just really like the mechanism on it. I mean, you're just putting things on the map. You get a special card that you can, do things with. You're kind of bidding on how those orders of those cards come out. And even though it's so simple, you could teach almost anybody. There's a lot that's going on. And I think that there's a lot of player interaction because when you do that thing, you can, whatever that thing on that card says you can do, you can manipulate other people's pieces on the board, and I like that. I like that I could throw Chris's pieces off the board. I like that I could tell Daniela, oh, not today, I'm moving your pieces over here. And I like that it's not just your pieces you're controlling, but you're controlling other people's pieces, and I do like that in games. People might not like that, but I like that. So El Grande for me on mechanisms. Going over to Pete.
Yeah, I'm going to agree with you. The mechanisms in El Grande, and I'm going to kind of have a little caveat here because I think what's a plus in this category, I think, is a downside in another category. Being able to influence what's going on the board and interacting with people, I think, is a very big plus. But I think this game really sings at the full player count. And I think that's important to keep in mind when we're talking about the whole game, because I think the mechanism of drafting that card and the decisions that you have, I think this game has a real unique way of bidding to get that card, and the higher you bid, the less actions you have. I think that's fantastic. I like rolling dice. It's fun, but I think I am just going to go with El Grande for the mechanisms. Over to Chris.
Yeah, I think 100% what you said with respect to player count. I think I've always played El Grande at 5, except for the one time in Origins we played with 4, and it was still okay. But I definitely I'm playing it at 5. I'm in at 4. If it's less than that, I probably don't want to play it because of that. That decision space with the cards. All of a sudden, it's not as hard of a decision at all. That being said, Champions of Midgard, there's one mechanism in there that I can't stand, and that's the blame from the fact that you can be ganged up on, and I don't like that mechanism. I don't like take that's. Blame is 100% take that. It makes me mad sitting here thinking about it. El Grande for me. We'll go to Daniela for, it doesn't matter, but go ahead.
Yeah, I'm going to go with El Grande as well. When we're sitting down playing it, it's cleaner. It's a little bit easier to get through the game. We all kind of know what we're doing as we're playing the game. I do like it at a 5-player count, which is what I've only ever played it at, because you're using up the entirety of the cards on the one side. Everybody knows kind of what they're going to have to take. You play a game a little bit better when you know how you're going to have to manipulate based on that card. And so it's just really cool as we're playing that.
All right, so El Grande sweeps mechanisms 4-0. We now have a tie between these two with respect to categories 1-1. We go to value for your time. I'm going to start. I'm going to stick with El Grande as well. I feel like that entire game, whenever we're playing this, I'm engaged. I'm struggling. I see somebody take the card that I wanted. I'm trying to figure out what I'm going to do with what's left. Not that Champions of Midgard doesn't keep me engaged, but I feel like I am always engaged when I'm playing El Grande, and so that's why I'm going in that direction. I'll go to Pete.
Yeah, value for your time, and I'm going to bring this up again. I think this is a great game when you have the full 5-player count, and I'm going to base this off of the sweet spot, which is the 5-player count. I think if I have 5 players, this is the game I'm pulling out. Anything less than that, I really don't want to play it. But I think the value that you get if you have that full player count is probably a little bit more than I would get playing Champions of Midgard. I wouldn't want to play Champions of Midgard at 5. It's just too much. You can do it, but I think that takes too much time. So plus the setup of the game, I mean, that's another knock against Champions of Midgard because there's a lot of chips. There's a lot of setup to the game. So we're going with El Grande. Over to Daniela.
Yeah, so El Grande took us about an hour and a half to play. Champions of Midgard took us about 2.5 hours to play, so a whole hour longer to play the games. I agree with what you've been saying, Pete, as far as the sweet spots of these games. We played Champions of Midgard at 4. It was like okay, but it was really like I think Chris took out 2 different items from me twice, and then I like couldn't move or do something else. I don't know what
I took your ships.
Yeah, I don't know what the sweet spot is for that game. Is it 3? I don't know. I again probably haven't played it enough, but there's something there that I think needs to be a little eked out for my value for my time. So I'm going with El Grande. You, David.
Yes, I'm just gonna ditto all that. El Grande for me on this one. I just think that I'm always invested in the turns because the turns are snappy, but there's so much manipulation going on the board that if you're not paying attention to this game when it's not your turn, you might as well not play it because there's going to be so much action that's going on the board. You're not going to actually know what to do, I feel like, in a lot of situations. So I love games that make you be invested when it's the other player's turns because it's affecting you just as much as it's affecting them. So El Grande for me.
All right, so another sweep, El Grande, 4-0 on value for your time. Replayability. I'll start this one off. I'm actually going to go with Castles of Midgard here. I think there's enough different cards that can come up, enough different things that can happen in that game. El Grande, while I love it to death, it can get a little bit samey. I think you're playing somewhat the same thing. I'm going to go with Champions of Midgard. I'll kick it over to David.
Yeah, I see what you're saying, Chris, there. I'm still going to go with El Grande, I think, on this one, just because I'm normally going up against the players. I know the cards can come out, but I think there's so much with the bidding mechanism. Am I using my 10 card, using my 1 card? What am I using to get there? Do I need guys? Do I not need guys? And what do I think everybody else is going to do at the table because I can't repeat the same number? So if I'm just basing off of that, I do think Champions has a lot of replayability. Maybe I'm just bitter because it beat Lords of Waterdeep, but I'm going to go with El Grande for this one. I'm kicking it over to Pete.
Okay. This one's really very, very close for me to make a decision on because I think the replayability is good in each of the games. I'm going to say this is more of a knock if you need to have 5 players, and I don't know that I get 5 players to the table enough. Whereas with Champions of Midgard, I can play that with a less player count, or I could even play it with 5. That's doable. I think there's also a lot of randomness in the dice. You have to make some decisions. I like the worker placement, and I'm just not a super big fan of area control overall. There are games I like it. This is one that I do like it in. But as far as replayability, I just don't get it to the table enough. And I think that's where I'm going to say Champions of Midgard, I get more plays, which is more replayability for me. Daniela?
For me, replayability is if there are 2 games on the table right now, what do I want to play more of right now? I have a very comfortable level of El Grande. I enjoy the game. When Champions of Midgard was brought out, I was kind of like, I don't know if I'm going to like this game. I don't know what I'm really going to do here. I actually enjoyed the game a lot more than I thought I was going to like it. I do think that there's some different expansions in there that I would want to add onto the game and try out. And I think it would add just a lot of flavor to the game. So I'm going to go with Champions of Midgard.
Nice.
Didn't see that coming. Champions of Midgard wins replayability. We are now tied 2-2 in our Battle of the Funnest. We go to the fun factor. I'll go back to Daniela.
Okay, so fun factor on these. This is hard, but I feel a camaraderie when we're playing El Grande. I think that there is a fun factor to it where, to David's point when he said, you better be paying attention and you better be engaged in the game. that's when we're having fun, and that's when we're all looking at what all's going on and you're trying to plan your next move. And to me, that is the fun factor of a game. Again, the camaraderie around the table and how we're all playing it together. I do think that there is a room for Champions to maybe push this out one day. I'd like to see that happen because I really enjoy that game, but I'm going to have to go safe and say El Grande. Chris.
Yeah, I'm going to go with El Grande as well. I think back to when we played this at Origins, two people we didn't know, Dave and I sitting across the table. They had a blast playing it. I had a blast playing it when the gentleman was playing with us, came from behind. I don't think of fun when I think of Champions of Midgard. I'll throw that out there as well. Easily El Grande for me. I'll kick it to Pete.
Yeah. So with these two games, is again, we talked about, a lot of these are different types of games. I like the strategic part of El Grande. I also like the Ameritrash rolling the dice, and there are stand-up moments when we're trying to defeat the monster. Am I going to get it? And to me, that's just a little bit more fun. I'm going to go with Champions of Midgard, and I'm going to send it over to David to see if we're going to tie this up or not.
Yeah, so fun factor, I always like to think back on these times, what memories do I have of both of these games? What kind of shout out moments do we have? I do agree with Pete. When you're rolling the dice and you're looking for certain things to come out, I do think that's really fun. There is a lot of commotion at the table. People are either rooting for you or they're rooting against you not to get your dice roll. But I can't take away from just how sometimes it affects you. It affects people indirectly, but when you're doing El Grande and you think about all those big swings, when the Castile, because people can't remember what they put in there, and so everybody's like, do I have enough people in there? Do I not? And I just think it's hilarious because even though you should know how many things are in there, it's amazing how many times you have no clue what you actually put in that thing until it's released, and then people are like, oh, you had 3, I had 2. And I just think that the fun factor to me is being able to teach that game, and the newbies can actually beat you just because of some of the factors, some of the cancel mitigations, but somebody new at that game can still win on their first playthrough. And so for me, that's always a fun factor because I feel like I can still play hard against them. And if they get lucky, sometimes they can still beat you. So I do like that. Yeah. So anyways, fun factor, El Grande for me.
All right, so El Grande wins Fun Factor 3-1, and it wins our Battle of the Funnest 3-2, staging a Caballero coup to advance to the Elite 8 of our Meeple Madness tournament. All right, in our last Sweet 16 matchup, we have the return from our last episode of Lockup, a role-player tale. Our number 18 seed matching up against the number 2 seed in our tournament and one of the big dogs in board gaming, Terraforming Mars. We touched on Lockup in our last episode, but as for its out-of-this-world opponent, Terraforming Mars is a 1-to-5 player, hand management, set collection, and tile placement game set 400 years in the future. You represent one of many corporations taking on the task of making the red planet habitable, increasing the planet's temperature, oxygen content, and ocean coverage, and lining your pockets in the process. Terraforming Mars was designed by Jacob Frixelius and was first published in 2016 by Frix Games. Its current BGG ranking is number 7 overall, and it defeated Arc Nova in a Battle of the Big Dogs in episode 32 to make the Meeple Madness tournament. Some people might assume this is a foregone conclusion. The number 2 seed, again, such a low ranking. Lockup is something in the 1200s or 1800s in the ranking. I think it could get pretty interesting because there's a lot of people that like Lockup around this table. We're going to see how it goes. Well, maybe not one to my right here, but there's still some over here. We'll get it started with theme and production, and I'll start with Daniela.
All right, theme and production. I know why you guys lock up. I know you like the dungeon aspect of it, but I'm still sticking out with space. When this game comes on the table, you get your own individual player board. You get to look at this map in front of you. You've got a couple different tracks that everybody is looking at that you're kind of working together on. Whether the temperature raises or any of the other indexes are going up. I just overall think it's nice and clean and simple. It's easy to read. I think it's cleaner than Lockup. So Terraforming Mars for me. Pete.
Yeah, I'm going to agree with you. Terraforming Mars, the theme is there. I mean, who knows, in 20 years, we might be heading to Mars. It's doable. Lockup, I enjoy that theme as well. I think it's a unique theme. I just think Terraforming Mars is going to do it for me. I'm going to swing over to We'll go with David this time.
Yeah, so I think I like both of these games as well. Lockup again gets another space game to go up against. It went up against Alien Frontiers in round 1. When I look at the themes and I look at the production value of both of these games, I do think they're very similar. I think Terraforming Mars has a lot of upgrades that people have gotten over the years. So if you're just buying the base game, you're opening that game up, you might be surprised about what the components actually might look like if you've seen a lot of pictures of it. But I'm going to have to go with Lockup. I just like the theme a little bit better. I do like space, but I feel like Lockup's such a unique theme. And if it's going up against another space game, I'm going to pick Lockup again in round 2 for this one. Going over to Chris.
I'm hesitating.
Chris, are you in the room? Okay,
yeah,
perfect.
I want to get my thoughts together. I really like the space theme. It is a bit overdone, but this isn't just a space theme. I think what makes this interesting is this is a theme that, people are starting to talk about Terraforming Mars, for real.
Right.
Talking about getting there, starting to talk about doing some things. That makes it a little more interesting to me. I do love the theme of Lockup as well, though. Not that I'd love to be in prison, but it's a really interesting theme and really well done as well. Production, Terraforming Mars takes a hit on production. Those stupid player mats, if you haven't blamed it out, is absolutely terrible. I know people get on the art for Terraforming Mars. I don't mind the art so much, but man, I really like the theme. And again, just the meaningfulness right now. I'm going to surprise myself and go with Terraforming Mars, which means Terraforming Mars wins theme and production to take a 1-0 lead. In this battle, we'll go to mechanisms, and I'll kick it back to David.
Ooh. So mechanisms, I like both of these mechanisms. There's a reason why Terraforming Mars has been up in the top rankings for a very long time in the board gaming world. I think it deserves those accolades. I do like a lot of what you're doing there. You have a lot of agency. But I'm going to go with Lockup. It's my number 1 game right now. I just like the fact of the worker placement, how it mixes things up. I like every time I get to reveal something. I think that, I feel the tension every single time I put something on the board. Terraforming Mars, you can play it. Sometimes you can get in your own head, I feel like, and you can play like your own kind of game. You're just kind of watching what other people are doing, but because I can't directly necessarily affect other people like I can in Lockup, I'm going to give Lockup just a little bit of the edge on mechanisms for that reason. Kicking it over to Daniela.
Yeah, if you listened previously to our discussion on Lockup, I fully admit, I've not played the game enough to really, I think, get my feet wet in that game. But there's something in Terraforming Mars that I truly enjoy. When we played it the first time, I was like, oh my gosh, there's a lot going on here. I don't know if I'm going to get this. I was surprised at the ease and the simplicity of all the things that you can do and could do in the game. And so for me, it was like that variety. Even the set collection, when the cards come around, I understood the cards, which is huge for me, again, to understand and look at it and just the ease of placing that. And the tile placement, to me, it's just an incredible game. I really, really enjoy this mechanism. So I'm going with Terraforming Mars. Pete.
The one mechanism that I really like out of Lockup is that hidden worker placement with the different values. Other than that, I think the mechanics in Terraforming Mars, I think there's more interaction. In Lockup, putting that hidden information down is your action. And I think that's the interaction that we get. Yeah, there's a little battling back and forth in that. But I think there's a lot more to do in Terraforming Mars. Do I play my 1 or 2 actions? We're kind of, am I bluffing? Am I waiting for somebody else to do something to take advantage of something that I'm ready to do? I just think the mechanics that are there are just a little bit more than I get out of Lockup. So I'm going to go with Terraforming Mars. Chris?
Yeah, if I gave my opinions, I'd pretty much be repeating what you said. I love that one aspect of Lockup. I think other than that, Terraforming Mars is going to take it. I will say, if you're new into gaming, do not play Terraforming Mars. I talked on the regular show. I played this too early in my gaming life, and I didn't understand what in the heck was going on. And I was like, how can anybody ever figure that out? Got a little deeper into my gaming. I was like, oh wow, this is fantastic, and the way you can start to put things together and actually make it work. So Terraforming Mars for me, which means Terraforming Mars also wins mechanisms 3-1, takes a 2-0 lead in categories over Lockup. We'll go to value for your time. I'll kick it over to Daniela.
So value for my time is going to just be straight up with Terraforming Mars. I truly enjoy when we're bringing out this game. There's not a lot of setup. You got to kind of space out the little cubes a little bit and things like that. But you basically put the board out, put the cubes out, get your own player mat, and then it's really the matter of the cards as you're drawing them and building your own. You're not building a tableau. You're just kind of moving your pieces of wood the cubes along the track to build and get more resources from them. So, I just really like delving into this game and getting into it. David?
Yeah, I'll balance you out. I'm going to go with Lockup on this one, value for my time. When I look at the playthrough times, I mean, they're both coming in at 2 hours. They're both a lot of fun. I mean, I would sit down at either table and play these games. So for me, it just comes down to, I guess, which one do I want to play more? And I think most players don't know how to play Lockup, so I'd rather teach that game to people and try to get them into a different game. I know a lot of us gamers have played Terraforming Mars before, so if I have to play it, I'm going to go with Lockup just for that reason. Kicking it over to Pete.
Yeah, value for my time on these two games. I like them both. I think they're both good in their own right. I was actually surprised when we went over to Daniela's and we played it there, how quick the game actually went. And I think when I play Lockup, it seems long. We talk about this in some of the other games. This is one that just feels a little bit longer than it should for me when I'm playing that game. So I'm going to go with Terraforming Mars. Chris?
All right, I'm surprising myself too. I thought I was going to vote for Lockup, and across the board, and as I just started digging into this, I think I agree they're both great. I was sitting here when this category started saying I'm going to do Lockup, and as I'm thinking through this though, I think for how much you get out of that game, Terraforming Mars did go a lot quicker than I thought when we played it that time, and it has every other time that I've played it since then. When you have people that are aware of what they're doing, how to play the game, I'm going with Terraforming Mars. I'm surprising myself. Another 3-1 victory. We go to replayability. I'll start. I'm going with Terraforming Mars again. I do feel like Lockup can be a little bit of the same thing, even though you might get different cards. You're still kind of doing the same thing over and over again. Terraforming Mars, maybe on the board it gets a little samey, but boy, the different cards that you can get just make that game different every single time. We're not supposed to talk about expansions, which that's my answer. Even without expansions, you get into the Prelude expansions, and then even more. It's directing your direction. But I'm going to go with Terraforming Mars. I'll kick it to Pete.
Yeah, I agree with you. Just we can play that game and it'll feel different every time. When we play Lockup, you're playing against the opponents versus playing against what's dealt to you. And I just think there's so many options that you have, different paths to go, or you're watching what other people are doing. And that main player board, there's a lot of interaction in there. It may not be direct action, but there's some competition to get to those spots. So I'm going to go replayability, Terraforming Mars. Daniela?
To be fair, this is a sympathy vote. I'm going to say Lockup for replayability because I know I need to dive into this game and play it more. I know there's more to discover in this game that I've not uncovered yet, and so I'm going to go with that. David?
Oh, I should tie this up, but I'm actually going to go with Terraforming Mars on replayability. I just think when I look at paths to victory, I do think there are more paths in Terraforming Mars, more different ways you can win. And I also think even though you're playing against the other players on Lockup and you're doing a bunch of stuff to try to bluff, I do think you could be a little bit more clever when it comes to all the different mechanisms that you find in Terraforming Mars, and you can feel more clever if you combine those mechanisms in the right way. And I always like a game with a lot of agency. Both of these games give it to you, but I think Terraforming Mars, just by a little bit, comes out ahead for me on the replayability.
All right, so another 3-1 victory for Terraforming Mars over Lockup. We'll see if it can sweep all the categories. We'll start with fun factor here with me. I'm actually going to go with Lockup here. I have fun playing either one of these games. Lockup, for whatever reason, I feel like I'm feeling clever while I'm doing that. It's a different kind of fun. I'll go with Lockup. I'll kick it over to Danielle.
Yeah, I'm going back to Terraforming Mars for this one because it is just one of these games that I really enjoy playing. I love managing my hand, and it's a good time for me. Pete?
I agree with it, Daniela. Terraforming Mars. I just enjoy that shared interaction a little bit better in Terraforming Mars than I do in Lockup. David?
For me, it's going to be lockup on this one. Just have too many good memories, especially when people flip over stuff. When you can get a good bluff going in there, there's nothing quite like it in most games if you can pull off the perfect bluff. Even though I like Terraforming Mars, I'm going to go with lockup.
All right, so the fun factor is a tie, 2-2. However, with a score of 4-0, Terraforming Mars rockets to victory to be our final member of the Elite Eight in this year's Meeple Madness tournament.
All right, guys, we are wrapping that up. So the 8 that we have remaining are Brass Birmingham, Eldritch Horror, Lost Ruins of Arnak, Camel Up, Viticulture, Glory to Rome, El Grande, and Terraforming Mars, which is what we just ended with. Guys, any surprises, any favorites, or final thoughts?
I thought Terraforming Mars was going to go down. I was surprised at how big of a beatdown that was. Well, I know that David and I really like Lockup, but when I started breaking it down and Terraforming Mars, again, it went from, boy, I know my son likes this game, I don't, to I can't wait to play this game with my son again. I've rediscovered this game, but I still thought it was going down. That one was a surprise to me. I'm not sure anything else was.
Yeah, I actually am surprised that Glory to Rome did beat Castles of Burgundy. I think with the way that the games are rated, and part of that might just be that it's so inaccessible to know somebody who has Glory to Rome and be able to play it. So, but I think that also talks about what type of games we like and not necessarily the best game that everybody else thinks of. So, again, keep that in mind. I'm sad that, Glory to Rome won, but hey, that's what happens.
Sorry, you got your viticulture through.
Yeah, I got a little sweet wine revenge.
David, any final thoughts?
I'm just going to cry because Lockup didn't move on. But other than that,
that's all right.
Okay.
I'll play with you because I know I need to play that. All right, guys. Well, everyone, 10 games have fallen in this year's Meeple Madness tournament so far, but 8 still remain. We hope you enjoyed this episode, and if you want to get in touch with us and tell us what we got right and maybe where we missed the mark, which I'm sure, as David alluded to earlier, we're going to get some emails on this, but you can email us at thefifthmeeple@gmail.com or reach out to us on Instagram, Facebook, Blue Sky, Twitter, or at our BGG Guild. And make sure you tune in next time to see which game survives Meeple Madness in our 2025 Battle of the Funnest tournament. Goodbye, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Goodbye.
Adios, amigos.
Glory to Rome.
El Grande was designed by Wolfgang Kramer and Richard Ulrich, or Richard Ulrich. Who knows?
Then, Castles of Mankid-Lingwood.
For what?
What? Well, they're going to be able to look at this on the...
Okay.
Whatever. You can cut it.
I think I might.